Okay. Welcome, guys. Just to make sure that we can hear or know that people are accessing the audio and the visuals in the room, can you just type in the box just to say, okay, you can see things, or if you're facing any issues? Just check the chat now.
It's all looking
Hi
good.
all. Yeah, it's looking good.
Switzerland leads, Spain. Hi Janice, hi Elizabeth. Ben.
Video disabled. Yeah, try rebooting the browser, Ben.
Yeah, there should be sound, Jamie. Maybe you need to reconnect, which isn't going to help you because you can't hear me.
What's going on, Jeff? Where are you at in Southern California?
Wet and windy. Thanks, Laura.
From Frankfurt as well.
Yeah. Okay, looks like some connection. Taking a bit of time to get through there.
Yeah. Video disabled except for on YouTube. Yeah, if people are having problems out there, there's the opportunity to watch from YouTube. And if you comment or you have any questions, you can comment on the YouTube page, and Richard will be picking them up as well, so that we can ask the two Bryans questions later.
Yep.
Okay, there's a screenshot been sent. Okay, so getting a blank screen here. Hold on. Yeah, watch this video on YouTube. So either refresh or head over to YouTube and watch it. And as mentioned, comments, Richard will be picking up from there as well. Okay, so I'm going to come from behind the slides now. But welcome to Seller Sessions. This is the first one, the PPC Roundtable with Bryan Johnson and Bryan Bowman. My name is Danny McMillan, and we've got the Welsh Wizard, Richard Morgan, who's holding down the fort in the background. So featured topics tonight. We're going to be covering sponsored ads, what to be doing in 2017. We're going to take a look at AMS, and we're going to look at marketing off Amazon in terms of Facebook and funnels. So give me a chance just to pop out of here.
Yes.
Hey guys.
Very good.
Cool. All right. Okay, so let's start with a little bit of background from the two Bryans. So, Mr. Bowman, do you want to go first and give the audience a little bit of background on yourself?
Yeah. So, I guess I've been a private label seller for a while. I've been doing Amazon sales and like e-commerce stuff for about 10 years, but really the private label stuff's been about 2 years. A while back, I started the AMZ Profit Pros group, really just to kind of have more like tutorial-based stuff instead of just sort of theory on, just kind of what we should or shouldn't do, like really kind of walkthroughs and step by step. And so, yeah, the group, it really is about just mainly about traffic and generate kind of optimizing listings. And then most recently we've started really talking about stuff off Amazon, and not to say anything bad about Amazon, but just to make sure we're diversified. And again, as you kind of mentioned, we were incorporating a lot of information about sales funnels and how we can just create more of a multi-channel business instead of just focusing on one channel on Amazon.
Cool. And Mr. Johnson? Do you want to give us a bit of background on yourself?
So my background is in, absolutely. So my background is mostly, I spent several years selling on eBay and then been on Amazon for the past 3 years and consulting for the past 2 years, primarily for sponsored product ads and created a training course and PPC software, and like Bryan Bowman, I also have a Facebook group.
Do you want to give the names out for a lot of people? Obviously, would have come from the Facebook groups, but for those who don't know and want to get educated on PPC, do you want to let them know?
Yeah, so you could find me at AMZ Profit Pros on Facebook or at amzprofitpros.com. If you're interested in learning more about the funnel side of things, which we'll be talking about today, I can share some more resources at the end, but you can pretty much find everything at those two spots.
And Bryan Johnson, yours is changed from, is it PPC, troubleshooting, and AMS, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's Amazon PPC troubleshooting. That's probably the easiest one to search for, that Facebook group. And then I've got the training academy called Sponsored Products Academy. And then the software is PPC Scope.
Superb. Okay, so let's get started. So what I'm going to start with first is to Bryan Johnson. You done a webinar last week with Bryan, which covered the 3 pillars of success. Obviously, guys can go back and watch that on Brian Birch's channel. But for now, do you want to just give us a quick top line of those 3 pillars that you discussed last week and why they're important?
Okay. So what I was talking about was in 2017, we have to be more aggressive than we were in 2016 when it comes to advertising our products on Amazon. The reason is because we have a lot of new competition. We have the average ad spend is going up. And some of the things that used to work really easy as far as simply just using, doing like unprofitable search or doing like negative matching on search terms and small bid adjustments and such. That used to work great, but it's getting less and less effective as the competition continues to increase, as well as the profitability goes down because the average advertising cost increases. So what I typically focus on in 2017, what I teach also is, first of all, using the advertising platform as a market research tool, first and foremost. So to use it to identify who your target audience is so that you can optimize your product listing to position ideally against the best competition you can manage, to position higher organically for those search terms that you've already identified as converting well in your advertising. Yeah. So it's really using that market research of the advertising in order to really propel where you're making more of your money, which is on the organic positioning side of the house. Mm-hmm. So from there, it's going into then, of course, working on developing your campaigns and using best practices in order to optimize your campaigns to reach a break-even level. Yeah. And then, of course, working toward profitability. And there's simple ways and there's complex ways of doing all that.
Of course. So that's the first 2 parts, and the final part is.
Got a bit.
We have some delay here. Sorry, guys, but yeah.
So I mean, the final part actually. Well, there's a bit of delay. So, I mean, the final part actually was in the webinar, and I kind of reversed it when I, started talking about it. But ultimately, you're going to be you're going to be positioning your product in organic search so that you can get the best visibility organically, because that's probably where 4 to 5 times more of your sales are going to come from as a result of positioning your product higher. But if you don't know how you're optimizing your listing and which specific keywords that you're optimizing your listing for based off of what you've proven to actually convert for your specific product, then you're just guessing based off of what your competitors are doing or what you think is popular. So it's really important to identify what specific search terms and keywords that your audience actually purchases your product for.
Yep. Okay, so basically top down, what we're looking at is that you're looking to positioning your brand as a key thing. You're looking at the structure of your accounts, which is going to be important for scaling and best practices, and obviously identifying the right search terms that are going to help you over the long term to position yourself on an organic basis. Yeah. So it's the long goal is obviously that a larger chunk of your sales should be made up
Correct, yep.
of organics. Okay. All right. So just to flip it around a little bit, now that where we are in 2017 and after the situation with reviews and everything last year, in terms of products, you know, everything that fitted in a shoebox and, you know, it was fit in a shoebox, it was light in weight and all these different things, it's become kind of saturated in that market, right? And obviously there's still room to play, but obviously that's starting to fill up now. What are you seeing now in terms of the impact for PPC on different products? Are you seeing a shift through all of your accounts and the people that you look after to see that they're moving in a different direction for products, maybe oversized where it's a bit cheaper, or more expensive items, so it moves away from the crowd that don't have as much to spend? So what's your feedback on that?
Well, so you figure it's going to be based more off of profitability as opposed to specific product selection. Certainly, there's going to be products that have reached a point of saturation where you could be, maybe you went into that particular product niche thinking that you could sell based off of the keywords that you researched initially, and now a flood of new competitors have come in that have maybe driven the price down and driven the profitability down. Mm-hmm. Driven up the number of selection, a number of listings that shoppers have to choose from. It's getting harder and harder in order to get the shopper's attention and basically stand out. So while we can certainly bid higher in order to and optimize our campaigns in order to have Amazon show our ad in a premium position, ultimately what we probably need to do is to look for existing saturated products, look for more niche segments within a category or subcategory that allows us to target maybe not the most popular, highest traffic keywords, but the ones that we know convert well for a product that have a lot less competition. Make it easier so that you can rebound anytime you've got new competitors coming in or competitors using black hat methods. You're not going to get pushed down as quickly, certainly. But it's going to come back to profitability. Certainly when it comes to advertising, is knowing what your net profit margin is, knowing what your break-even profitability is for your product and your advertising is absolutely essential. Otherwise, you're just going to be blowing money and not really have a goal in mind.
And would you say it was a fair assessment to say that there's a massive chunk of people out there who don't really know their exact breakdown of their costs and their profitability in terms of the accounts that you've seen? Because I think a lot of people will...
It's a very common mistake for any business.
Yeah, so I was going to say, what would you find is the three most common mistakes? Maybe I'll bring in Bryan Bowman here as well. Being that you manage multiple accounts, what is the three most common mistakes you've seen over and over again? So Bryan Bowman, do you want to give a couple of examples?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like, there's just not, and I agree with Bryan. I think in business in general, people, like, entrepreneurs are really good at getting stuff done and moving the ball forward, but aren't really good at, like, keeping the trains running on time. So I think whether you're going to have someone do it for you or have good software, you definitely need a way to really keep track of your profitability so you can make the right decisions. I think the number one thing I see is, man, it's a lot. So, I mean, it's definitely going to be like not like a real assessment of all the costs. So a lot of people, I mean, at the highest level, it'll be people will say, okay, I made $10, I spent $5, so, you know, I made $5, right? And then like I spent $5 on ads, let's say, but then not understanding every single piece, like in that chain from the minute that you source a product to, you know, it gets on a boat or it gets on a plane, all the transportation costs, labeling costs. It's so all the expenses that are involved. I think, I don't think it's any fault of their own. I just think people are more concerned with moving the ball forward instead of, you know, the nuts and bolts. And that's why. So
that's one area. And Bryan Johnson, what do you give another example of a common mistake you're seeing in accounts?
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm pretty much hyper focused on the PPC side of things as opposed to general FBA as an example. However, certainly from an advertising standpoint, I see it more of those who are they're of the belief that there's too much bad information that's been spread around. Unfortunately, that includes things like if I just turn on, pay-per-click advertising, for instance, then magically I'm just going to start getting sales, and my product is going to show up on page one just because I'm running advertising. And frankly, it just does not work that way. It's Amazon's ad auction. Their algorithm is more complex than that. It's not as it'd be nice if it was as easy as always raise your bid and that works, but it doesn't work that way. And unfortunately, those are some common misconceptions that are still being taught in a bunch of different courses and discussion groups. And unfortunately, the way I try to frame it is make sure that you've got your focus in on what's your end goal as far as trying to get your product positioned properly against your competition. Make sure that whatever advertising that you're doing, if you're doing it for research purposes, fine, you can lose money on it. But at some point, you need to know exactly where you're going to break even in your costs so that you know when it's still giving you a positive ROI and actually giving you the benefit that you think it is.
Yeah. So what would you suggest is a good way to do that? We're not talking about grabbing a spreadsheet and breaking out numbers. I'm talking about an overall strategy. A lot of people will say, I'll go into the red so I can then come back out the other side once I'm ranked, but there are no guarantees. I mean, where's the break point for that? Where do you determine, I'm going to work out the long-term value of my customers here. This is how much I've got to spend. I mean, how would you advise people to set up that process?
Right. So it's an 80-20, Pareto principle. So, initially, certainly the way that I teach is to go pretty big as far as keyword research and testing a lot of different keywords, all the different match types. But at some point, you do need to consolidate that in and really focus in on where are you getting your profit. You're going to have your set of keywords. You're going to have your products that are going to be profitable. And to focus specifically on those, not just continue to run these large, research campaigns just for the sake of running the campaigns. The goal is to identify, maybe 5 to 10 search terms or keywords that you can actually get a positive ROI on, making sure that you're positioning your product and then shrinking down your campaigns just to the core of what is profitable and what you need to protect. So for instance, your own brand name and defending your brand or your product position against other competitors who might also be bidding on your brand name.
Cool. Okay, so a question for Mr. Bowman now. Now, I know we can't split test in the traditional sense on Amazon, and a lot of people go through the stages of tweaking. We don't have the control parameters in terms of the back end to manage tests in a traditional way like you would on a commerce site. So are you using any split testing tools per se to work out some tests in terms of showing customers X amount on one page and then doing it on from like a control page to a test page?
So as far as Amazon listings, no. I know that there's one that people have always mentioned to me, Splitly, which I haven't used, so I can't really.
But that's more like a parallel rather than, because you can't split test 50% of the traffic either side. You roll one day, roll the next.
Yeah, exactly. So I still do it the way that I've always done it, which is I do it by number of sessions. So that's kind of my control. And I mean, it's not really a true split test because, like you said, I'm not running it simultaneously. And there's other variables that need to be factored in that I can't control. But basically, I do use a spreadsheet and I track every part of the listing. So I have the title is the last thing I'll ever test, but as far as visibility, like search terms, bullet points, description, I just started adding in like the enhanced brand content stuff, and images. And then what I'll do is literally like swap out one part of that, test it for a baseline. I try to at least get what would be equivalent of 7 days of sessions, so that'll change by product. But I kind of just want to cycle through every day of the week and then test it later on. Now, again, that doesn't control for, holidays and just different buying patterns over different, in different quarters and different periods of time and different weeks. But right now, it's the best system that I have if I can't simultaneously run different ads in the same period.
Yeah. What about you?
Different listings.
What about you, Bryan Johnson? Do you use Splitly or any tools similar to in the attempt to split test listings?
So, as far as I don't use external tools. I primarily use the data that is available to me through either sponsored product ads or through AMS. And I like to, one of the things I definitely like to do is I like to look at the data from a sales funnel standpoint. So from an advertising standpoint, you've got your click-through rate to represent that front door where you're trying to attract shoppers into your store by clicking on your advertisement. And then, of course, on the back end, you've got the conversion rate where you are actually convincing that shopper that you got the right product for them, and that's the back end of the sales funnel. And typically, there's going to be strengths and weaknesses at a product level, at a keyword level, even, in order to figure out. In order that you can observe, rather, and you can test to see how you can improve, first of all, increasing the click-through rate, increasing the number of shoppers that actually get in the door, and then, of course, conversion rate. So there's indicators basically there that'll tell you where the problem is, where you want to focus on first. You might have a very weak front end of your sales funnel where you're not getting shoppers into your product listing because your ad is showing something like, it's showing the incorrect, keyword terminology in the title. It has poor images that don't scale well. Maybe the reviews or the price are turning shoppers away. So there's a few areas of a product listing content that we can look at and narrow it down and decide what do I actually need to fix. And like Bryan Bowman said, is certainly title or category are going to be the last things I'm going to check because those are very calculated risks because they can have such a high impact, both positive and negative.
Of course, yeah. And in terms of, while we're talking about optimization, I call this the down season optimization. We've obviously come out of a period where we've had a great, say, Q4, but you get that period, couple of days up to Christmas Day, that little period after. But obviously the panic sets in and the tweakers come out at night and they're sitting and playing with their listings. So what do you guys do in a down season? Do you leave it alone? Do you understand what it is? Because obviously I see a lot of comments on places like Facebook and people say, oh, my sales have dropped off. What do I do? And they whack their PPC up and they change their title. Is it best left alone, or what is the practices that you put in place? Mr. Bowman.
Yeah, I kind of, like, at this point, I let them, there's so many people who still have bids that are just ridiculous, at least what I'm seeing is I'm seeing cost per click is still it's still high, and at this point, people aren't really buying. They're, I think there probably are buyers still, but at the point is my advice to clients is let those folks who are competing over these clicks, let them kind of kill each other for a little bit. Let's save our money, and as always, let's focus in on some low hanging fruit like our long tail terms, and let's focus in on that and optimization. But yeah, the high bid stuff, like, I think dial back your campaigns now. That's my advice as far as your bids.
Cool. And while we're still with you on this one, stockouts. So you guys, what's your take on it at the moment? Is it still go out on your shield, or are you going out on your shield, or you raising the price so it changes the conversion rate for when you get back in stock?
Yeah, on my end, I'm definitely I like it. Go out on your shield. I use the analogy of a car, like just let it crash into the into the wall. Like don't. It's not to say that like it's ever okay to go out of stock, but just you don't.
You don't get a trophy for it, do you?
Yeah, you don't. You don't want to slow down sales velocity. It just never works out. And as long as you're not out, I can't give you a specific time frame. I know people always want like how long is it? before it really starts impacting me. All I can say is don't go out of stock a lot, because I've seen some funny things happen with accounts that go out of stock over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And don't go out of stock for too long. My sort of gauge is about 3 weeks. Like if you know you're going to be out of stock for 6-7 weeks, maybe we have to have a different conversation. But generally, if it's going to be like 3 weeks or less, just let it happen. You'll bounce back, and then that's where you're going to have to leverage traffic and getting the sessions up. So
Cool. And I see Bryan is nodding there as well. You agreeing?
Yeah, there's definitely. Yeah, I mean, I work off of typically the metrics that I go off are the 7-day cycle and the 30-day cycle. So, kind of like what Bryan was saying, as far as if you're going out of stock beyond 3 weeks, then your metrics are going to deplete over time. And once you get past about 4 weeks, you're basically reset at zero. So anything after restocking after 4 weeks, you're kind of starting over again. But I definitely don't recommend trying to slow down sales, because that simply just starts the degrade in the click rates and conversion rates and that type of thing ahead of time. I certainly might slow down my PPC, but I don't try to play with the numbers and try to slow down sales by jacking up the price.
Cool. And so whereabouts are you with auto campaigns from the change from, say, 2016 to 2017 now? Have you had any changes in your methods, or are you still going along the same lines? Is there a big delay there?
I mean, yeah. I mean, as far as like automatic campaigns, I mean, yeah, I think so. So as far as like automatic campaigns, I primarily do for initial market research. I do like a high-low method that I teach, but I continue to use automatic campaigns, typically with a lower bid, for the sake of picking up key search terms that are not directly relevant to the product. So in other words, I'd be pulling off any search terms that came in and running those a manual campaign, or doing keyword research off of anything that converts and running those in my manual campaigns, in my research campaign, my converting campaign. And generally what I'll do is I'll use the automatic campaign long term at a lower bid, simply to get things like, well, Amazon will show my ad for competitive brand names. They'll show it for relevant audiences. They'll show it for on other product listings where I can see an ASIN that might show up. So it's certainly part of the tool set that I use and teach on a regular basis, but I move a lot faster as far as getting into my manual research campaign and building that out. And to the point on that is a common mistake that is made is grouping product variations, the same SKUs all into the same ad group. Yeah. I prefer to separate those into their own ad groups. I also split out match types too, but that's because of the limitations in the reporting by Amazon as far as being able to segment the data between products.
Yeah, no, totally. And do you have any hacks when using Bid Plus, or is it still a money pit for Amazon? Bryan Bowman?
I stopped using it about 9 months ago. I think it was probably about a week after it started. I don't know. I never really did much with it. I have toyed with it on the AMS side, and just to see if there were any differences. But in general, I probably advise against it unless you're very active in managing your account and you can really separate out when it's effective, when it's not. I think it's just going to be a money pit. That's my opinion. But maybe.
And Mr. Johnson, what's your thoughts on it, on the Bid Plus? Are you on the same line?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. I don't recommend that people have their ads in the number one position, and certainly because it's going to be 2 to 3 times more expensive on a cost per click. I certainly don't invite people to pay Amazon 50% more for the privilege of spending 2 to 3 times more, because you're just throwing, money after money. There are some people who really want to use that. They have to be in the number one position because they have a competitive nature about them in a certain product niche. The exception I might do is if I want to test out, again, this is strictly just testing, but if I put in, like, say, a single keyword phrase or, a couple of keyword phrases into a campaign by itself, where I can actually dictate, look, Amazon, you run bid plus, get me in position number one for this specific keyword. Oftentimes, if there's others who are using bid plus or bidding very aggressively on a keyword, then you're not going to get that. You're not going to get the number one position. You're not going to be considered, you're not going to be activated for that keyword on bid plus. But I'm not simply just turning on bid plus over to Amazon that has 1,000 keywords and then let Amazon, pick 3 or 4 keywords out of this entire campaign in order to show up in number one position. I really want to be very specific and have a specific reason. Typically, that's going to be more for if I'm trying to protect a brand name, for instance, and I want to bid very aggressively and always show up number one position for a brand name, that might be the exception, but I rarely ever use it.
Right, gotcha. And in terms of keywords not showing up now, what kind of tips would you give for troubleshooting? Because obviously a lot of people will complain that they're running their campaigns, but they're not getting visibility no matter how high they bid. Like you, I understand there's relevancy and stuff involved, but what are 3 quick tips to mitigate that? Because often it's very difficult to deal with anyone in seller support. You get different answers all the time, and sometimes you don't want to wait 2 days, and some of them are absolutely clueless when it comes to these kind of things and give you the wrong information. So if you had 3 tips, what would they be to go, your keywords are not showing, these are the 3 things you should do from the off to make sure that that's not obviously causing the issue?
Sure. So, certainly, I think any of us who have talked to level 1 seller support has had a certain amount of frustration, and the kind of the common script that level 1 support will say under those circumstances is, it doesn't appear that anything's wrong with your campaigns. You should just bid higher. That's kind of the normal thing. But unfortunately, they're not trained as far as how the ad auction works, and they don't understand that there are 2 parts to that the ad auction that determines. Similar to kind of how AdWords does quality scores, Amazon also has campaign quality scores, or basically an algorithm that does that kind of a calculation, where they're looking at a couple of things. First of all, they're going to be filtering ads out, as in your ad is either showing or it's not showing, based primarily off of eligibility as far as whether or not you're allowed to run an ad, say, if you have buy box or not. And second is keyword is going to be content relevance. Certainly, since some of the algorithm updates over the summer, Amazon definitely focused in more on phrase matching as opposed to single word broad matching across your content. So, and they're also continuing to tighten up how much content matching it's going to require in order for your listing to show up for those ads, or to show up, either at all, or, to show up or not at all. And so the recommendation on that is to make sure that if you have identified, or if you know that you're trying to target, 2 or 3 specific keyword phrases, then make sure that those are prominently in your front end content fields, and that includes either your title or your bullets or your description, and from an organic standpoint, your back-end search term fields. It used to actually, they used to evaluate those fields differently a year ago. So that's definitely changed, and I would recommend that if your ad is not showing at all, it's because Amazon doesn't consider you relevant. Most likely it's either because the search terms that a shopper is using is mostly relevant to subcategories where your product doesn't reside, or Amazon can't find a decent match with the exact keyword phrase that they're searching for, the search term they're searching for in your content. And so they'll move on and show somebody else's ad.
Gotcha. Okay, so moving on from there, obviously there's a new feature that's been launched if you've got brand registry, enhanced branded content. So it's still related to PPC. I'm trying to understand from you guys, from your point of view, what kind of impact has that had on your campaigns now that you've got a bit more control over the page? And have you been implementing this like wholesale across your clients?
I've just been testing it. I haven't implemented it, like you said, wholesale across my clients. As far as I can tell, so it does replace. It's not like A+ content where you have a product description and the A+ content.
That's right.
Replace your product description,
Mm-hmm.
and from what I can tell, I mean, in the handful of cases that I've checked, it's not getting indexed. So I haven't run PPC campaigns against it. So maybe Bryan has some thought on that, but I'm not sure. Because generally, like going back to relevance and being eligible to appear, if you've basically lost space where you can have keywords being indexed, which is what's going to educate the algorithm on what you're relevant for, there may be a reason to not use enhanced brand content if it's not leading to higher conversions.
Gotcha.
But
I mean, I've had a play around, and what I found is I've been using the more image-rich templates. They seem to work a lot nicer. So I'm using the main image with the product and the brand name. I've got text overlay in there, and underneath that, I'm running with a copy. So it's a synopsis. It covers it in broad terms. And then what I do is I use the second and third images I've created infographics for, and then I run bullet points across the top of them, so it allows for the scanners, and then I have a paragraph for the non-scanners scanners underneath. And then on images 4, 5, and 6, I use the action shots, what the product's used for in use, and again wrapping those with the 3 main bullet points and with paragraph text. And I've found that kind of working quite well, but it's very difficult to measure off its success, because when I implemented it, it was just as Q4 was kicking in.
Yeah.
So it's hard to see what the what's happening,
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Have we got any PPC related questions at the moment before we move over into funnels, Richard? What have we got coming up on the wall? I think we lost Richard there.
Right, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah. So we've got a couple of different questions. So Luke Knight has asked the question: when you reach the magic top position, would you advise a different strategy with regards to PPC? I.e., is there any need to spend as much if organically you are doing the business? So do you take a different strategy once you've got the organics coming through? When do you take the foot off?
Yeah, I think that's kind of what we were. Yeah, I mean, it's. I like to have more than one piece of real estate on front page, but it certainly doesn't need to be in the top, the premium positions. You can certainly back off. I usually try to back it off so that my ads start showing up in the right rail or in some of the lower ads. It doesn't need to be as prominent. The exception, there's always going to be exceptions, of course, if I'm trying to dominate. And again, it comes back to, if it's profitable, continue to run it. But ultimately, if you've got an organic listing showing up on page 1 plus an ad, that's 2 chances instead of 1 that you'll collect the shopper.
Yeah, just piggybacking on that, I think profitability is what it comes down to, right? I mean, hey, if you're up there and you're selling like right now, I have a client. They have a product. Their products range from like $149 to $349. And if you search like main keywords, whether it's their brand or like the main keyword, we've got the headline ad. I think at one point we have the 2 inline ads and the top of the right rail, but it's because ACoS is low enough and it makes sense. I mean, again, it's a higher priced product, so that obviously is going to influence ACoS as well. But for me, it's profitability, and I think the only thing I would say is maybe not when you reach the top of the page in terms of PPC, but once organically you start reaching sort of the above the fold and you're in the top few spots, I kind of have my own ideas on what I do, and I'm not saying it's the way you have to do it. But I generally like to back off PPC at that point, just because in my research, I feel that it's been just cannibalizing organic sales. And how do I know that? Because when I back off, sales stay steady. Now, that may not always be the case, so I don't want to make a blanket statement, but it's something to test. Let's put it that way. It's something to look into. But maybe Brian, maybe you have a different thought on that. Like, I don't know.
No, kind of like you said, it's good to test.
Okay, Richard, have we got any more questions?
Yeah, there's another one from Matt Collin. He's asking for the guys' thoughts on best practices for implementing negative keywords. What data do you look at to determine when to add them to a campaign or ad group?
Yeah, definitely focus in on search terms that are underperforming or not performing at all. I always focus in on, first of all, on the search terms as those lead into the performance of a keyword. So because you're applying negative exact match to search terms, then look to see as far as like I know in our software, we've got something called an unprofitable search term report, and that'll tell you as far as which ones, are basically which search terms are burning the money and are not getting the conversions, even though you've had a decent amount of clicks. Now, that's going to vary based off of conversion rate. Generally, I'm going to say at least 5, maybe 10 clicks on a search term. But again, that's going to vary depending on what the conversion rate is for the product. But generally, I'm going to do negative exact match. Very rarely do I do negative phrase match unless I identified a single word that is essentially poisonous or toxic across all of my campaign. Then I'll do a negative phrase match, but I'll go in every single week and do negative exact match on unprofitable search terms, especially the ones that are getting 0 orders.
Cool. And also someone just asked, did Bryan Bowman say that enhanced branded content is not indexed? That's correct. Yeah, is that right?
Yeah, that's what I've seen so far.
Okay, let's have a little chat about sales funnel, Facebook, and then we'll move into AMS and some hacks and stuff. So just to back it up slightly, Mr. Bowman, what is a sales funnel and how do they work?
Yeah, so I think in the context that we're talking about sales funnel, so a sales funnel, like every business has a sales funnel, but I think what we're talking about specifically is a series of like
events
pages.
For a purchase, yeah,
like events for a purchase, and you can have a sales funnel like Brian mentioned inside of Amazon, right? They search your product, that's like the top of funnel. They land on a certain set of results, they click on your results, they buy. So there's a process they go through, and at every step you're kind of losing people, right? Because some people search, some people click, some people buy. But I think the context you're talking about is more of an off Amazon sales funnel, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So essentially, sales funnel is, we've all been through one or been through the process. You see something like an ad, you see something, a link that is enticing you for some product or some service or some guide, something you're interested in. You click it, you get to a landing page. The landing page then has a headline, some information about the product, and generally there'll be an opt-in. This is called the squeeze page. This is one type of funnel. There'll be an opt-in. In exchange for an email, you get something, a guide, a coupon, something. A more advanced sales funnel would be a product sales funnel where you're going to go in, maybe you do a free plus shipping. This is very, very common and actually can be pretty effective with physical products. It's one of the more common ones we build. You have a free plus shipping offer. So essentially, you get the product for free. You're just paying the shipping cost. And this really, we can go into the specifics of how this works out from an actual profitability standpoint. But when you see those, I mean, you really are paying the shipping cost. In some cases, you're actually the person who is selling you that is actually selling at a loss, because you have to factor in there's an ad cost to get you there to that landing page, and then you're going to have to ship out the product. But then throughout that funnel, there's going to be a series of upsells or downsells or products that you may also be interested in. And the purpose of that is to drive up the average cart value. so that you can offset the cost to acquire the customer. So we could talk about the strategy and specifics and all that, but yeah, essentially it's just a process of like web pages that allow you to add services or products to your existing order.
Okay, so let me give you an example then. So walk me through, now people understand what the funnel is and there's many placements for the funnel in different terminologies. Walk me through a kickoff campaign. So let's just say we're going to run ads on Facebook. What is your approach to designing the ads, being specific on your targeting, setting up your split testing, bidding and budget? How do you go about that? So obviously that's a big question, but to try and nail that down into a small parts, we're using Facebook and somehow we're trying to get a purchase from Amazon. What goes on in between and what does people need to understand about these campaigns?
Okay, so that's two different things. If you're trying to get the purchase on Amazon, ultimately you want that first purchase at least to occur on Amazon.
Yeah.
Let me back up, like kind of similar to the principles or the foundational ideas of PPC. There really are like principles in terms of how to develop out a funnel, and there's three things you need to be aware of. The first is your traffic. Mm-hmm. The second is your bait or your offer. And the third is, we call it a value ladder, but I'll explain what that means. So the first thing is you have to understand where you're going to go get your traffic. And right now, Facebook is still a great option. If you can get the targeting right, and you're not just throwing your money everywhere, kind of like PPC. You're not just, throwing a bunch of bids and money out there. You're actually doing your research, looking at the data, and you know who to target and what terms are. It would be the analogy in Amazon, but what people you want to target in Facebook, you can drive down your cost per click and actually have profitable ads. So let's say your traffic source is going to be Amazon. You have to know Facebook. You have to know who you're going to target on Facebook. You're going to drive them with the right bait. So if you think of like the traffic as your fish, you need the right bait to be able to catch them and like reel them in. So crafting the right offer. So typically for Amazon sellers, so there's an on Amazon and off Amazon funnel. For Amazon sellers, it's going to be a product discount coupon, 30-40% off. And that's the bait. And in exchange, what you're asking for is an email address. Now, why do you want an email address? We all hear, you got to build your list, you got to build your list. Well, that brings in that third piece, is the value ladder. Right now, if all you sell on is Amazon, that's all you do. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I know people doing $10 million a year selling on Amazon. But there are inherent risks, like anything. And right now, you just have the bait. You don't control the traffic, really. I mean, you do in some sense with sponsored products, but if you're not doing anything off Amazon, then you're just limited to the Amazon world of traffic. You have the bait, which is the offer, your product, but you definitely do not control the value ladder or what happens after the purchase. Sure, you can send some follow-up emails through the buyer messenger service, but you don't really control the process. And where a business needs to be able to scale and to grow, you need to be able to control that. What else your customers are going to buy, how you communicate with them, and how you bring them back for more. So getting them to spend more in the first purchase and getting them to come back and buy more. So that's why we want that email, because now we have control outside of that buyer messenger service where Amazon basically has you by the horns, and you're limited to all these things, terms of service and all this. I mean, when you have the email, now you can actually bond with your customer and actually create a relationship. So was that too high level? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, what we not need to do is to dip down. I think what we're trying to cover here is that people know they can go into their account and they can turn on sponsored ads, and it's there, the traffic's there, the platform's there, they're targeting via keywords. But obviously with Facebook, it's contextual targeting. It's a different ball game. So we've got to warm up the audience. But what I was trying to get to is for the audience to understand the sales funnel, what it means, and then, how do they run that traffic? So what would you do in a day of a life of a campaign to send in traffic to gain buyers on Amazon? So you've kind of pointed out with the offer pages, but what tools are you using?
Okay, so again, there's like a lot of pieces to this, right?
To put it together, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let me break it down into sections for you.
Yeah, or maybe we just
Facebook traffic.
Okay.
Okay. What's the best approach to targeting to build a customer avatar? You would say, give me 3 key aspects.
So the first thing I would do, especially if you have any kind of sales on Amazon, I would pull your Amazon customer list. So pull your data from Amazon, from Seller Central. If you want to pay for a premium service like Managed by Stats that will do an email append or a phone number append, because Amazon used to give you phone numbers. They don't give you that anymore.
Yeah, it's gone now, yeah.
But if you wanted to do that, that would give you some more information. But you can try without that. Download that customer list and upload it as a custom audience into Facebook.
Yeah.
What Facebook is going to go do, they're going to take that list, the information you give them, the name, the address, zip code, state, country. They're going to go try to match that up with a user on Facebook. So let's say, and your match rate, it could vary. I've had some people have 70, 80% match rates, and some have 20. So let's say you have a 50% match rate. If you put 1,000 customers into there, you're going to get a custom audience of 500.
Yeah,
now,
which is small, isn't it?
Which is very small. Yeah, it's very small. I mean, that's definitely a micro audience. But what it can do is, and especially if you have a bigger audience. So let's say, I have some sellers that have, 100,000 orders, unique orders. We can get a pretty decent list of 20, 30,000 people.
Yeah.
There's some tools inside of Facebook. One of them is Audience Insights, by far my favorite of the free tools, where I can get a little like a customer profile based on those people. Like it'll tell me demographics, page likes. If there's enough people, it'll tell me page likes, where they order from, household composition, and that starts building out my customer avatar, because now I know how to talk to these people. If my audience, if the people who buy my product are primarily, single men who live in, I don't know, the southern, in the South, well, I'm not going to have ad copy and images, and I'm not going to speak to, a middle-aged woman with kids or something. So, all of that starts building out this picture of who my ideal customer is, and that educates everything else I do.
Okay. So what is the next stage after that? So you've got your micro audience, which is very targeted. For instance, let's say you've got your 500. So I'm talking about regular Amazon sellers that may not do the scale to the people that you mentioned. Can you not create a lookalike audience from that batch of data?
So you can create a lookalike off of that, and then that's just completely... Basically what Amazon or Facebook does is it uses, I think last I heard it was like 1,200 data points, and it creates an audience that's very similar. Usually you want to do a smaller percentage, so like 1%, which is like 2 million, and basically create a lookalike of 2 million people that resemble that audience. Typically lookalikes will perform better, and then from there you can segment down. So if you, let's say you sell camping gear, you create a lookalike. These are not people who bought from you. These are just people who resemble the audience you uploaded.
Yeah.
And then you can create a more targeted list by using camping as one interest. You don't want to do camping in the Grand Canyon or something like where it's very targeted and it's going to shrink your list down. Just a high level interest to bring that audience down to like maybe 500,000 to 1 million.
Yeah.
Another option, if you don't want to use the audiences from the customers from Amazon, you could have a Facebook pixel. And you can create lookalikes off of your Facebook pixel as well. Facebook pixel, all it is it's a little piece of code that goes on your website. This assumes you have some website off Amazon. And I was going to say there are some like little ninja ways to pixel people to Amazon, but we won't get into that right now. Essentially, anyone who lands on your page, Facebook will pixel them, and they'll know, hey, they've been there, and then they can create an audience based off of that.
Okay. So with that in mind, because what I'm trying to look at here is that if we want people to be educated of coming off platform to enhance their sales, to go on what's going on platform, is that they're going to want to work out, well, what do I need to do? What are my tools here? I understand that I've got a small audience, so I take my custom audience, I build a lookalike audience, then I'll use a form of interest to narrow down that audience. What do I do next in terms of what are good practices in terms of designing ads? What would you use tools-wise? Would you use Canva? Would you use templates?
Canva's the best. I think when you're starting out, Canva makes it super easy. And basically, I still generally stick to the Facebook rule of, even though it's not a formal rule anymore, of having your images have less than 20% of text. I still generally stick to that, just because it affects how your ads will run. They won't get denied, but it affects how they get run. So I generally stick to that. Just have a strong call out, like call to action in your images. Obviously, have the product in there, and based on what your customer avatar, that research you did, that's going to impact what kind of copy you use and what kind of colors you use and what demographic. Generally, I will always split my ads from male, female, like in terms of the colors and the imagery that I'll use. Unless I have a predominantly like all female product, but even then, you can target like husbands and boyfriends and stuff that want to buy it for their significant other.
Okay, cool. And in terms of going back to the audience size, you said between 1 and 2 million, didn't you? Is that based on if you're on a budget or whether you've got a lot of money to spend? Because obviously that has a big impact as well, doesn't it? Because of the allowing for the budget for testing.
Yeah, and you don't need to spend as much as you think. I mean, so I like the reason I say 1 to 2 million is just mainly for targeting. Like that's a pretty broad audience after 2 million, and you're probably not going to be able to be very like specific to their pain points and have a very targeted message if it's 10 million, maybe. But in my experience, like 2 million is a good number, or 1 to 2 million is a good number. Sorry, what was the other question in terms of?
It was based on the size of the audience and whether you've got the budget.
Oh, budget, right. So you don't have to spend as much as you think. So, I mean, I start, ad sets at $10 and just kind of see how they perform. And you definitely, it's kind of like, again, analogous to having a whole bunch of keywords out there, and you're just kind of testing, and then you trim the fat. It's the same thing. You put out a whole different like sets of ad sets, and then you scale, and then once you find one that's working, now you can start scaling it up. One tool that makes this easy, once you know how to use it, is Ad Espresso.
Yes, that's what I use.
Yeah.
So, which is I was going to get on to the next question. There was, are you using like a ratio for your budget for your split testing? So obviously you can generate 256 ads or whatever it is, but you're not going to get very far with $10 a day, and every ad's got a couple of pennies to spend on it. What is your ratio are you using in terms of your budget? Are you saying one test is of a value of $5?
Yeah, I mean, so I do it by like ad set, I guess. I mean, because that's the thing is it'll create, Ad Espresso will create a whole bunch of different ad sets.
Yes.
So I usually like to start with about $10 per ad set.
Per set, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and then I scale up from there. Generally, you don't want to scale too quickly because the way Facebook's algorithm works, it kind of walks backwards. So if it's going up an incline, but it's kind of walking backwards, if you all of a sudden spike the budget, sometimes you'll see some funny things start happening with your campaign. So in general, I don't raise the budget more than 15 to 20% per day, and very quickly you can scale that, right? Like that can pick up. But I wouldn't go from like $10 to $100 a day.
And in terms of best performing ad creatives, are you using video? Are you using newsfeed ads? What kind of ads are you using predominantly for your campaigns?
Yeah, so I would definitely I would edit your placements. I would not use audience network, especially with physical products.
It's going to bring that. Yeah.
So
what about right column? Do you skip right column as well?
No, I use right column. I generally will skip Instagram unless I have a strong presence on Instagram or the brand has a strong presence, like that we're actively marketing on there.
Yeah.
I don't just check the box just in case because generally it's more expensive. Let's see. What else in terms of video, right? So video can be very effective. I know of one guy who's in, I won't say his niche, but he does a lot of video, but it's like essentially like unboxing content is what it is. He also does stuff where he's demoing his products, and that does very well. You'll just have to test it. I mean, generally right now the algorithm is favoring video on Facebook. So but you got to be careful of those metrics because it'll tell you you're getting 3-cent views, but that doesn't mean a whole lot if it doesn't lead to any conversions.
That's it. I was going to say, what are you, in terms of bidding, what are you optimizing your bidding at now? Are you OCPM, or what's your initial kickoff when you're bidding? You allowing Ad Espresso to do the work there, where it are optimized on your behalf, or?
Yeah, I generally will, just because I'm just testing so many different things. So I definitely will let Ad Espresso optimize. Ultimately, for me, it is about conversions. I mean, unless it's a branding play, if you just want to get the word out, then yeah, CPM and video views are great. But generally, I'm optimizing for conversions.
Okay, cool. So let's just back up, just to avoid any confusion for people. What we've run through so far, we've discussed that you use Ad Espresso to build out your campaigns because that's quite straightforward. You're favouring more video ads in terms of that Facebook actually favours those type of ads. You're building off your audiences based on some upfront data that you already have, whereby you're using a custom audience as a kickoff, turn it into a lookalike audience, bring that down to say 1%, the terms of lookalike audience, and then you're going to use, to narrow the bandwidth down, you will use an interest of some kind. I think you referred to like outdoor sports or something. So that brings down the numbers further. And then you're allowing pretty much, if people are not using Ad Espresso, would you say that you're allowing Facebook to optimize, or do you take control of your bidding yourself, your strategies?
Yeah, I would strongly advise just to use auto bidding. I mean, if you're doing a website click campaign, maybe go a little bit above the suggested bid. But I mean, general, I would just stick with auto, honestly.
Cool. And so with that in mind now, we've kind of covered some area of Facebook. I mean, it's much more complex than what we've discussed so far.
Yeah.
What are you doing in terms of driving that traffic? We just discussed that maybe it's an offer page rather than direct to listing, yeah? So what software are you using there?
Yeah.
And the techniques in terms of copy?
So, I mean, your two options are, I mean, you run the ad. Let's say you run the Facebook ad. You could send them straight. You can send them straight to the Amazon listing, or you can send them to basically a little pit stop, so you can capture an email and build up your buyer list. If you're gonna send them to a funnel, essentially like a squeeze page, I use ClickFunnels. I think it's the best. But I don't use ClickFunnels, just landing page software. So I will use that as that's one caveat. I mean, if you're purely going to use it as a landing page and you have no intention of ever making a sale outside of Amazon, maybe ClickFunnels isn't the best fit for you. But among all the things it does, it builds landing pages very easily. And again, that's an opportunity to pixel them, right? That pixel we talked about. You want to throw that pixel in that landing page so that you can start figuring out who actually is landing on there, so you can retarget them, and that's kind of a different strategy. But so ClickFunnels is what I'll use to build up my landing pages and then redirect them to Amazon if that's what I'm going to do. If you're going to go straight from Facebook to Amazon, there's only one piece of software I know that'll help you track conversions, because once they end up on Amazon, you don't know. I mean, you could create a unique coupon code and then track to see, okay, how many people clicked and then how many people redeemed the code or something like that. But there is software that does this using IP addresses, and it basically tries to match up when they converted. It's called Acamo.
I'm imagining that's TOS friendly, isn't it?
Apparently it is. I don't, I'm not sure. I can't speak on their behalf, but apparently it is. So. But I mean, the workaround is, again, you could use a coupon code, and then try to track it that way. But that is kind of the. I mean, you can drive a whole bunch of Facebook traffic to your listing, but that is the part where after you do it and you're like, okay, I had some sales, I had some bump in rank, because I have not seen a negative impact from driving traffic. I know that's one thing that people get concerned about, is like, oh, well, now my conversion rates might suffer. I haven't seen an issue with that. I think Amazon cares more about sales than conversions, and quite frankly, like the rate. But there's going to come a point where you're going to have to start optimizing for how much you're spending, and then you're going to have to be able to know what converted. That's the issue.
Cool. So if someone was going to get started tomorrow with this as a test budget, and they've not done Facebook ads before, what the tools should they be using, and what kind of a budget should they allow for this?
Yeah, I honestly, I would go back to what we said. I wouldn't create too many. I would create one campaign, build yourself out. I mean, there's a lot of ways to build. There's tons of landing page building software out there. So I'm not going to push ClickFunnels. I mean, I'm a ClickFunnels certified partner. I build a lot of funnels, but again, the funnels I'm building are not just landing pages. They're, 5, 6, 7 page funnels that are selling product. But if you're just going to get started, start with a $10 a day budget. Go ahead. I would start with interest-based targeting. I mean, even if you don't want to do the whole thing with pulling customers and lookalikes and all that stuff, just do some interest-based targeting. Just go, if you sell, I think my example was camping gear. All right, well, look for, try to build up a little audience based on interest that are selling, that are made up of maybe 1 million people into camping, and try to pick things like they enjoy, camping itself is going to be a huge interest. So maybe start with camping and then reduce it down to, if you sell what do you call it? The little campfire makers. All right, so people who are into overnight camping or something. Build up a little audience of 1 million based on interest. Run about $10 to a landing page. Collect an email. Give them a coupon, and then send them off to Amazon. I think that's a good place to start.
Cool. All right, so why don't we, just because of the time we have available now, and obviously want to get some questions in at the end, let's move on to going back onto Amazon, and we'll start to talk about AMS. So I'll bring in Mr. Johnson again because he's been quiet for a while. Do you want to give us a breakdown of what AMS is and who are the type of people that access it? Bryan Johnson?
Oh, he's gone mute.
We can't hear him. He's dropped out there, I think.
No, nothing there.
I can't hear him. Okay, just for a moment while you're sorting your mic out, do you want to take on this question, Bryan Bowman?
Yeah, so AMS is Amazon Marketing Services, and basically it's available to really anyone who's a vendor. So that's kind of the one pre-qualification is you have to be a vendor. Now, most people think, first of all, Vendor Central is an invitation-only program, which it is, and you can definitely get AMS access that way. But one sort of loophole that a lot of people don't know about is Vendor Express. So you can set up a Vendor Express account, and once you go through the process, then you have access to AMS. And AMS will now give you access to several things. The biggest one is going to be you're going to have access to headline ads. You're going to have access to product display ads, and there's also sponsored products advertising inside of AMS. Headline ads are those ads that appear basically all the way up at the top of the page before even the sponsored products inline ads. And then product display are the ones that appear under the add to cart inside of a listing. So there's a whole different strategy with those, but yeah, it's pretty awesome. And honestly, it's what we've been, of all the things I've been working on in terms of Amazon marketing, it's the thing I've been working on most with clients because I think there's
it's
a lot
the
of
leg up, isn't it? It's that next stage where people have not got access to that gives you that a competitive advantage. With all that traffic that you're driving, even if you're driving externally, people can still get onto your landing page or product page, sorry, and you've got the buy box there, and there's your competitor sitting comfortably just underneath, giving a nice little offer. So you've done all the work, and they could still click through and buy their product instead of yours.
Exactly. We have a whole strategy around that. I mean, we call it our defend, destroy, and diversify strategy. But yeah, essentially, you can kind of like hijack their listing a little bit, and it's all within TOS.
Exactly. Yeah. So we've got Mr. Johnson back now. Do you want to give us a breakdown of what headline and product display ads and what kind of conversions you're seeing and costings?
Absolutely. So hopefully you can hear my audio.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, as far as our strategy goes, certainly we set up a number of headline search ads in order to kind of do a lot more broadcast because of the way that it's displayed below the search bar. And we generally try to keep our bidding very low and try to go for more of the high volume. So it's a lot more like, a billboard that you see, when you're driving down the street. You're just trying to catch a lot of different traffic. The conversion rates on that, I guess from our experience, it's been on par with the conversion rates that we would normally see. In other words, some of the things that cause conversion rates to go down, as far as too much selection, other alternatives, will also affect AMS ads as well. So we keep the bid down. We try to run as much traffic as we can through the headline search, and that usually works out with a great ACOS. From the product display ads, we generally try to, that one's a little bit more tricky to set up. It does require a different, we've got a few different strategies on that, as far as targeting, as well as testing individual keywords or groups of keywords, or targeting, as far as targeting specific competitors or specific listings versus a whole range of listings based off of keywords that we're trying to target. We're also starting to use some of the other tools they've added in recently, as far as trying to remember now the exact name of it. Is basically like a target bid, as well as like a target bid range, as well as the audience, or I'm sorry, category targeting. So what we end up with is we'll have maybe a few headline search, and then we'll have 20 or 30 display, product display ads that we're testing at any given time. And generally, the cost is certainly going to be lower. We certainly don't bid the same on AMS that we would through sponsored products. The reporting on sponsored products is a lot better, but I think from an ROI standpoint, AMS is definitely the clear winner when it comes to ROI.
Brilliant. Okay. What else was I going to ask you? So, in terms of split of accounts, with all the people that you guys are managing, how many of them have gravitated to Vendor Express now? Have you seen a big surge?
Generally, because I've been pushing them over there.
Right.
That's
okay.
What's happening. So a lot of people don't know they have access, and it's been around. It's not like this is something new. It's just that there just hasn't been a lot of attention on it. So generally, once I get them on the platform and kind of start working through our strategy, like Bryan said, the ROI can be higher. Cost per click is lower in my case. Like everything I've seen. Even with really competitive categories. I mean, I can show you just some crazy screenshots of just like $2 and $3 bids on Seller Central, and then in some cases, maybe 50 cents. But that's not at all like some panacea. Like this is the silver bullet. I've absolutely had campaigns and products that just don't.
You lost your ass on, yeah.
Hey,
yeah.
You lose your ass on AMS too. So I'm definitely not trying to make it seem like this is the.
But it's definitely helpful.
Yeah, it's not the Holy Grail, but it's definitely
helpful.
Something to look into and to incorporate, I think.
What about in terms of optimizing the reports? From my understanding, it's a nightmare with the reporting on there. So do you have any good hacks for that at all?
Yeah, I mean, no, the reporting sucks. It just does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and actually one of our associates is actually working on a technical solution for that too, but I don't know. I haven't talked to him in the past couple of weeks. So I don't know where he's at with that. That's for talking about Taylor. But
yeah, he's a very smart guy.
He's trying to come up with a solution.
Yeah, I think, for right now, what I can say is, if you download the reports, the reporting that it has right now, it basically will just give you the daily spend and ACOS. It doesn't break down. Now the sponsored products, it's pretty good. It's still not quite as good as the reporting available in Seller Central.
And that's nothing to write home about, let's be honest.
That's the problem.
Okay, right. So I'm going to give away a little hack here because I think it'd be fair to the audience to have a little bit of a leg up. So I hope you boys don't mind. So I'm going to run through something. It doesn't guarantee that it will work for people, but they could give it a try. But you could go and sign up for Vendor Express. Go and buy yourself a UPC code. Go to AliExpress, pick up a cheap piece of tool offer there, but make sure you get a proper invoice, not the checkout from AliExpress, but speak to the manufacturer that's selling on there. Fill in the form and create a listing with keywords, okay? Then offer it to Amazon, obviously determine a price for that, bearing in mind Amazon haven't got the same structure on the back end in terms of having to pay FBA fees. So you do have a little bit more welly to work with there. And so from there, Amazon's going to take it through and review it, and they may ask you for proof of purchase, which is where the invoice comes in to play. But once they've raised the PO and they've agreed it, and you can send them over some samples, they'll produce the shipping labels for shipment, and then at that point AMS will open up for you in most cases. So there are ways to getting on to the platform. I think some people call it a sacrificial lamb, and some people actually give up their products because Amazon's got a good way of abusing your products and your listings when you hand them over to them.
Yes, they do.
So even if you give them that as a tester, and you're serious about working with Amazon, but ultimately it's a way of getting into AMS. Now, before Christmas, being that we're based in the UK, if we wanted to sell, because there's obviously Vendor Express and Central in UK Europe, if we want to sell in the US, I spoke with them directly on the phone. I said, look, I'll be honest with you, I'm interested in Vendor Express in the US, I already sell there. However, I do not have a bank account there, and I do not have a business address there. Would it be feasible for me to use my currency company, which I already use for Amazon for my sales to bring back my money to convert back to sterling, and can I use my prep center where I get my products turned around and sent into Amazon? And they said you only need the local address purely as a way and means to produce the labels for the collection or the delivery of the products that's going to Vendor Express. And they've agreed that with the bank account that you can use that. So it gives an opportunity for our European members who are in the webinar today. There's an opportunity to look at it that way. So obviously it's not as straightforward as that, and there are some kinks in there, but there are means and ways that you could attempt to get onto the platform.
Hey, Danny. I also just wanted to point out, if it's all right, I created two guides. I created one that's basically a getting started guide that kind of walks you through the options that you have to get Vendor Express.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So I can share that, and then I also created sort of a strategy guide, kind of do's and don'ts of kind of lays out our strategy. So if folks are interested, I can.
Yeah, no, definitely. We can share off the information there at the end. I think we've lost Bryan. Did I scare him off with Vendor Express hacks? I think he's gone now. And we lost Richard. Oh no, he's Bryan. He's back now.
And he's gone.
Have we lost Richard as well?
I think Richard is here. I think Bryan is the one that hopped on and hopped off.
Okay, because we've got a stack of questions now. Okay. That are coming through on the YouTube channel, not just on the wall here, but on the YouTube as well. Let's have a look and start helping our way through these. Okay, let's start. I'm doing this off my phone here. Right. Daniel says, question, adding competitor brand names affecting your indexing for other keywords, question mark. Should we use them? What does testing say?
So the question is, should we be adding competitor brand names to our backend?
Yeah, it's almost like a double-loaded question here. He's saying adding competitor brand names affect your indexing for other keywords, question mark. I think what he's saying is by adding their numbers, are they then truncating out on the back end? So are you losing, say, a field of a line of keywords on the back end or phrases on the back end? Are they being blocked because they're using the brand names?
I mean, the brand names, in a lot of cases, the brand names won't get indexed, but it doesn't scrub out an entire line of terms. Is that the question?
Yeah, I think so. I think what he's saying is if he was to stuff his back-end, his back-end keyword fields with branded keywords, would that break the indexing? I.e., would it block that line, for instance? I think is what he's trying to get to.
So, I mean, he'll have to actually go through either manually or use software to go ahead and check. But in my experience, generally, it's just going to be the terms. I'm not a big fan of putting brand names in there anyway, but that's just my feel.
Another question, similar. Anthony's asking, does anyone use trademark terms in the product title? No.
No, as far as like the trademark, like TM, no.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, obviously, when something's trademarked, who's the question from? From Anthony. When something's trademarked, obviously that's not there for usage unless you've got the blessing of that, which is very rare. So it's normally the company that owns the trademark would only get to use the trademark. What else have we got here?
You got a couple of others here, yeah?
Yeah, do you want to step in, Richard? Give us some, because you should be having some of those.
We got one from Gillian Payne. She might immediately start an auto campaign. When did my search term report this week? And for the new product, there is 2 words which are related to the product, and the rest are ASINs. What do I do?
Bryan Johnson.
Yeah, she's in the academy, Brian.
Okay. Audio was breaking up. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, as far as... can you hear my audio? Okay. Having audio challenges here. So, as far as the ASINs in like, say, an automatic campaign search term report, those are primarily just stating... those are basically saying that your ad is showing up on another listings product detail page in the sponsored products, related to this product. And so most of the time we can either ignore those or we can act on them. Acting on them is whether or not they are causing a detriment to your advertising and they're spending you money, or if they are converting well for you, then you can also act on that and identify which terms or which keywords rather that they rank well for. Typically, if I'm trying to block them out, then you cannot use an ASIN as a negative match keyword. However, you can use, and this works probably about half the time from my experience, is that you can do a negative exact or negative phrase match on that other listing's unique brand name. Now, if their brand name has generic terms in it, that's probably not going to work very well for you. But if they have a very unique brand name, then usually you can do a negative phrase match on that particular term, for instance. If you're getting traffic that is converting to sales, then you can certainly take their ASIN, run it through a tool like Keyword Inspector, and find out how they're ranking on page 1 as for a long list of keywords, and then test out all those keywords to find out which keywords that they apparently are getting that's driving the traffic through them back to you, to try to get in front of that traffic and actually bid on those keywords directly. It's a matter of just testing a lot of keywords at that point.
Perfect. Okay, just a quick one. I need to step in here. Sorry. Joe, I've been running at break even. I've been running at break even for ages, and costs have gone through the roof since Jan. Anyone experiencing this? I'm losing 400 or so a day.
Yeah.
Joe, if you're losing that kind of money, switch that campaign off right now. You shouldn't be losing 400 or so a day. It seems funny your question's gone from you're running at break even and now you're losing 400 a day. Can you update that question so we can answer that a bit easier for you? Any more from the YouTube?
There's one from Grigory Miatzin,
yeah.
PPC. I've heard having a daily budget of $500 to $2,500 shows Amazon that you are willing to spend more, and your ads are given higher priority, even when you actually spend $40 to $60 a day. Is that a myth we can bust?
Did you pick that up, one of the Bryans?
We used to use that 3 years ago.
Yeah, that was an old school tactic.
Okay, we got Daniela. She's asking, I
have not seen that work in the last year.
Name. What is the purpose?
Can you repeat the question, Richard? Sorry.
From Daniela Tringell, I understand that competitors can bid on my brand name. What is the purpose?
So they can appear when someone searches for your brand name, they can appear in the search results.
Yeah, so basically, effectively picking up on that person's sale, aren't they? So a common theme would be you go after the market leader, you bid on the brand name. If they're not smart enough to be there themselves in terms of bidding, then obviously when people are looking for that brand, they spot yours, and it may be at a cheaper price or have a better value attribute, they'll end up purchasing yours. That would be the benefit on that.
Another one here from Hombre Body LLC. If you sign up through Vendor Express, can you still control your listing as a third-party seller, or do you have to sell wholesale to Amazon?
So what you're essentially going to do is you're gonna sort of sacrifice one product, but it'll open up the floodgates for everything else. So that one product, it really doesn't matter if they end up, because sometimes they can end up controlling title and stuff. But the point is, you give up that product, and even all of your FBA stock is eligible for advertising, if that makes sense. And then you don't lose any control. I mean, it's the same as it's always been for you on the Seller Central side. But it's by brand, and that's one of the things I detail in the guide I put together. Is like, if you're private labeling, it's easy. I mean, if you're like, let's say you're wholesaling and you have 20 different brands you're selling, it gets a little tougher because it's by brand that you have to get sort of approved.
Richard?
You have another one. Thanks for that. Wenatchee Valley Boys. Is AMS only available to products sold to Amazon under Vendor Express, or can you use AMS for FBA SKUs too?
Yeah, I think we kind of touched on that. So if if I have 12 different products that are all under Bryan brand, and I just have one product submitted, then all of my other Bryan brand stuff can be advertised, even if it's FBA.
We've got one here as well from Maria. I had this before, and it drives me mad with seller support. Check this out, Mr. Johnson, you'll love this one. Someone from seller support told me yesterday that in a manual campaign, we can only put keywords in our title. Is that correct? They're the only ones they're going to show up for, basically. Whatever keywords are in your title only, that's the only time you're going to show up.
So most likely what if they actually spoke with seller support in the past week, then yeah, that seems to be going around within seller support. Our team has been looking into this. They're suggesting that an algorithm changed on January 1st that now focuses in on only showing ads for keywords that are in the title. We have not observed the same thing. We've heard that a few times now already. That has changed since January 1st. We have yet to actually prove if that kind of change has actually occurred. That would not be a good advantage for Amazon, in my opinion. But there's a lot of things that Amazon does that we don't necessarily agree with.
Well, it goes against the grain, doesn't it? It's like you can run these campaigns and they can give you all these weird and wonderful characters in your reporting, yet they say you can only have your title or the keywords that are relevant to your title, which it gives you a very narrow width to work with, doesn't it? If you're working with 160 characters or so. Here's one from Sean Smith.
Yeah, well,
I know that person. Go on, you first.
No, I was going to say something that a lot of people are not aware of is the algorithm change back in June of 2016, like of some big storm or something. They did switch around as far as which content fields that were being used for sponsored ads. It used to be it was more title and back ends, and they really kind of shifted more toward the front end content fields for sponsored ads. So for those who are using the old practice of he was in the back end search term fields, but my ad not showing, try putting it in the front end this time.
Yeah. Okay. There's a question here from Sean Smith. I think we know who Sean is. Do you take into consideration CTR and or conversion rates at the keyword level when you're doing a bid adjustments?
Definitely.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. I didn't know if he was trying to catch you boys out there.
What's CTR?
Sean knows the answer though. So.
Yeah, exactly. Sean knows the answer. I think he's just. We have a plant in the audience.
Yeah, he's been
trying to produce content for the.
Exactly, for the audience. Okay, so Bettinger, I think.
Yeah, I mean, to expand on that, if
Yeah, go on.
go ahead. I was just gonna say, I mean, as far as like the feature in software, of course, but as far as like adjusting bids at a keyword level is actually it's going to be primarily based off of the product profitability against the conversion rate, or actually say against the ACOS of an individual keyword. And so while, CTR and conversion rate certainly play into that, certainly we look at it from a standpoint of we're going to adjust bids at a keyword level based primarily off of knowing the profitability of a product. That's not something you're going to get through Campaign Manager, of course, but we're actually doing that calculation through software, so it's a lot easier.
Cool. Okay, so Richard, let's do 3 to 5 more questions before we wrap. We're coming up to the 90-minute mark now.
Okay. When Match Valley Boys, how meaningful are the suggested page 1 bids? Providing an optimized listing of keyword relevance and matching those suggested bids the best place to start?
So optimize bids.
Yeah. How meaningful are the suggested page 1 bids?
Oh, suggested bids. Yeah, about as useful as a chocolate ashtray, I think. But,
so providing an optimized listing of keywords relevance, are matching those suggested bids the best place to start?
okay, Brian?
Sorry, I didn't catch that. What was the second question?
So, Richard, do you want to repeat that again because you broke up?
Yeah. So the second part is providing an optimized listing and keyword relevance, are matching those suggested bids the best place to start?
I just got the last pieces. Are suggested bids the best place to start, assuming that everything else is optimized?
Relevant, yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that, but they updated that, right? Didn't they get rid of those 50-cent suggested bids?
Yeah.
Like now, I mean, I think it's been rolled out to everyone. There's a better range that's available, so you could start at that bottom end of the range. I don't really have a methodology attached to that because I generally kind of start high and work my way down with my bids. Maybe Brian has a different methodology using that range. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a similar strategy where I'll start out with a higher bid and then work it down based off of profitability and ad positioning. But suggested bid is what Amazon rolled out in order to provide, here's basically the low bid that you would need to get onto page 1 and the high bid in order to be in position 1. And there can be some very extreme ranges that I've seen. I think the biggest one that I've seen was as little as $1.40 on up to $999 or something like that. And so while that would be great in order to, if you're going to go through and you've got just a small set of keywords, you can, run that through. Amazon did not build suggested bid, the suggested bid data or interface into any of their data APIs, which means that third-party solutions can't take advantage of that. So they kind of, they rolled out this feature. They took away the estimated page 1 bid report, which while the estimated page 1 bids were not valid, there was other data in there that they took away, and we basically yelled at Amazon. And they said tough, but the suggested bid range. I mean, we're still testing that to see how valid it actually is. There's a lot of things that was a problem with the estimated page 1 bid previously that they may have carried over to suggested bid range, and that has to do with time of day, region, product niche. What is it really taking in order to maintain that at noon versus midnight, for instance? That range may change throughout the day, and they don't give us that kind of detail within the day. So while we're still observing it, we don't rely on it.
Okay, cool. Richard, you got three or more to go?
Yeah, Scott's asking a question. What is the maximum discount you can offer as bait without Amazon possibly removing any reviews you get from the funnel?
So how low can you go in terms of discount in percentages, what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, everyone has their ideas. Everyone's, I've heard 50%. I've heard don't
51.
go below 50%. Yeah, so I've heard all the theories. I generally try to start at a 30 or 40% off anyway, and you just have to see how it converts. It all depends on demand for your product. But I mean, yeah, I don't really have like a hard set number. I mean, I think it's all based on theory. I'm not sure that there's a solid answer out there that says it's definitely one percentage or the other.
Two more, Richard.
Okay. We've got Raj here. I think he's looking for a bit of a hack. So what he says is, if I put one product to get access to Vendor Express and AMS, and then remove that product from Vendor Express, does Amazon block AMS since I don't have any products in Vendor Express anymore?
Yeah, that used to be an old like trick, is to like set up an order and then never fulfill it, and kind of an extension of that is set up an order, fulfill it, and then take it out. So yeah, that they've picked up on that. So that's not gonna work anymore.
One more, Richard.
You'll lose it.
Okay. And another one from Matt Collin. What do you feel is the ideal way to set up a campaign and ad group? I've heard campaign and then ad group for broad, phrase, and exact.
Who wants to take this one?
Brian, are you still on?
I think we've lost him.
Okay, so the question is how to set up the ad group. Sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah. What do you feel is the ideal way to set up a campaign and ad group?
What campaign structure?
In terms of like what should I be targeting in each of them? Is that the question?
I've heard campaign and then ad group for broad, phrase, and exact.
Oh, I see. Yes. Okay, so you definitely want to divide out. I mean, I should say definitely. This is how we do it, and it works well. You want to. we definitely recommend, and I believe Brian recommends as well, is dividing out by match type in your ad groups. So actually, Brian's back on, so I'll let him cover this too. But we definitely divide out our campaign product, and then we divide it out by match types in each of our ad groups. For us, it's mainly just organization. It helps. It's easier to kind of at a high level be able to manage those. But I've definitely seen campaigns that mix and match. I highly recommend breaking them out by match type.
Excellent. Okay, one more, Richard.
Yeah, so I'll typically set up campaigns. Yeah, same kind of thing as I'll set up the campaign toward a target audience with a group of products, and then I'll separate the products and the match types for each product. It's going to make it a lot easier to control the optimization later, and you can segment the reporting. It's a little harder to set up on the front end, and you've basically duplicated the keywords you have. That's not a concern anymore as far as keyword duplication or cannibalism like it was 2 years ago. But try to break the product up into their own separate ad groups at a minimum. Ideally, like what we teach, is to separate it so that you've got a broad match ad group and a phrase match ad group, for instance, for each SKU.
Okay. I got another one here. Matt Collin. When determining when to kill a keyword, what formulas or algorithms do you use to determine this? And then he gives into a bit of a description of some ones he's heard of.
I think what you're saying is he's looking at the conversion data, impressions, and
so
CTR. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I always optimize on the search terms first, since that contributes to the keyword. Once I've gotten to the point where I've already handled my search terms first, then I'll go in and look at my underperforming and my non-performing keywords. Certainly a non-performing keyword is one that I can drop the bid down considerably, 2 cents, 10 cents, whatever the case is. Underperforming, I'll typically look at the profitability of the product against the ACOS of the individual keyword, and then set a break-even bid on that keyword. But again, that's only after I've already gone through and exhausted my options with optimizing the individual search terms that are being matched up to each keyword.
Cool. Okay, so let's wrap it there,
and
guys.
The last one here
you're
from
going to get it.
Luke Knight. Would you suggest always having automatic campaigns running to gather data over time as the market changes?
Yeah, I keep auto campaigns running. But watch your bids, though. That's the only thing. You got to keep your bids low adding.
And make sure you run those reports, because you could end up running ragged
bid low.
with. Yeah, bid low and check
Okay.
your reports. Make sure it's not just ASINs stuffed in
Is
there.
Danny back?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
It looks like he's done a runner.
Can you hear me?
Oh, he's on mute.
No, I can hear you. I can hear Danny.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm here. So can the audience hear me?
Yep.
Can I get some people to tap on the keyboard? Audio very quiet
Yeah.
there. Yeah. Okay, so you can hear me. All right, let's look at wrapping it there. And guys, is there anything you want to quickly talk about as we leave it? I know that Bryan, you mentioned about your guides that you've got for AMS. Do you want to give out the details for that at all?
Yeah, sure. So if you just go to, so there's basically two guides. If you just download the first one, there'll be an option on the second one to just go ahead and grab a download for the other one. So the first one will be sort of our secrets, or our do's and don'ts, basically our rules that we follow for our ads, things to do, things not to do for your AMS ads. If you don't have access, go ahead and grab that form, and then on the thank you, you'll get an opportunity to just quickly download our hacks and our rules for setting up your AMS campaign. So it's pretty straightforward once you get, your AMS account using Vendor Express. So it's pretty easy to do. Just go through the steps and get it done. But if you go to learnams.com/guide, so just learnams.com/guide, you can go ahead and grab a copy of it. If you have any questions, you can always hop into the AMZ Profit Pros group, and I'd love to answer them.
Excellent. And what about in terms of consultancy and stuff like that, with ClickFunnels, etc.? How can people reach you?
Yeah, they can reach me, Bryan at amzprofitpros.com. There is a bit of a definitely want to set up some time to talk to you to see if it's a good fit. And if you're interested in, we have a course right now. If you're interested in consulting work and having us do it for you, we can definitely talk through that and see if it's something we can help you with. If you're interested in learning it on your own, I've actually created a course, an e-com funnel system course that will walk you through everything you need to know, to everything we talked about, the Facebook side of things, crafting the offer, the strategy, using ClickFunnels, building out an entire sales funnel so that you can really start diversifying your sales process and not just relying on one channel. So you can check that out at the AMZ Profit Pros site or inside of the AMZ Profit Pros group, and that's the e-com funnel system. So.
Brilliant. And signing off from Bryan Johnson, do you want to plug the Academy and what you're up to?
Of course. So of course our PPC software is PPC Scope. It's the original one, and we're on 2.0, version 2.0 on it now this year. So we continue to build that out, and we've got some very cool things coming in very soon for PPC Scope users. And then, of course, the Sponsor Products Academy course is our full end-to-end. It's the 4-week course to learn and specialize in sponsor products. And so that's sponsorproductsacademy.com.
Excellent. And obviously people can reach you in your Facebook group as well. Is that right?
Yep.
Excellent.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we do have a great group. Both Bryan and I, have our groups, and we've got some great interaction and following. So, like on mine, it's Amazon PPC troubleshooting.
Guys, also just the questions that we've missed out, especially on YouTube. If you want to cut and paste your questions over to the guys' groups, then either the guys themselves can answer the questions, or members of the group can answer them for you. I just want to say a big thank you for everyone joining us tonight on our first session. We've had a few audio problems, but we'll fix that for next time. In 2 weeks' time, we've got a special with Chad Rubin, Brian Burt and Kevin King, and that's going to take place on Wednesday the 25th of January at 6:30. I want to say a big thank you to all of our launch partners as well. Thank you very much, guys. I know some of you are tuned in. And if you want to reach out to us, you can check out the sellersessions.com website. You can reach me directly at danny@sellersessions.com or richard@sellersessions.com. And of course, there'll be a replay link going out tomorrow for the video. So if you missed out on any of the information, you can go back and revisit it. So without further ado, we're going to head off now, and thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you in session next time. Bye.
Great. Thank you so much, guys. It was great.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.